What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Legit Fishing. Hey, I hope everybody's having a good day. Welcome to Legit Fishing. Today we're going to talk about line. There's a million different options when it comes to fishing line, and I've got about half of them right here. We'll just jump in talking about braid. Now, on all of my spinning rods and reels, I throw a braid to a fluorocarbon leader. My favorite braid that I've been using the last few years is this vicious no fade braid, and this stuff is insane. It's got a little bit of a waxy coating on it, but it's not too much, and I like it in the 20-pound diameter. This I have had on this particular reel for 2 years, and I don't know if you can see the color of that compared to the color in this pack, but it hasn't faded at all. It still casts great, it still holds up really well, it holds a knot amazing, and that's typically what I throw. Now, I have been experimenting a little bit with this Sunline Siglon. This stuff is super thin. It's actually a lot thinner than that vicious braid, even in the 20-pound size. And for a lot of my lighter line techniques, little swim baits, Demiki rigs, drop shots, I really have been liking this. It seems to tie up with lighter line a lot better, but I can't say anything bad about the vicious stuff either. It has been amazing. Most of the products I have laid out here are Sunline. I've been throwing Sunline consistently for the last year. I used to throw it a long time ago. I went to Siglon, and over the last couple years I've had some issues with Siglon line. I had knots breaking, I had it breaking in the middle of my leader. Just had a really bad deal with it. So I switched back to all Sunline, and the majority of what I throw is Sunline Assassin for my leader line. Most of the time I throw 12-pound test. There are times where I'll bump up to 15. If I'm throwing a drop shot or a little Demiki rig or something like that, I'll go as low as 7. And these two are Sunline Sniper, and they are a little bit higher end than the Assassin, but sometimes when you go down to that smaller diameter, you want something that's a little bit stouter, and I do feel like these are stronger, a little bit more consistent as far as how they cast and everything than the Assassin. But I can probably count the fish on one hand I've had actually break me off on the Assassin, and it has been great stuff. Anywhere from 10 to 15 pound on my bait casting rods that I use fluorocarbon on. I typically use the 15-pound Assassin. Most of the time when I'm throwing a casting rod, unless it's for a jig or something like that, I throw monofilament. And I'll be honest, I bought this giant spool of the Bass Pro Excel 12-pound monofilament a few years ago, and I just spool off of this. If I'm throwing crankbaits, top waters, any moving bait, I typically like to throw a mono. It's got a little bit more stretch. Seems like you've got a little bit more forgiveness with those heavier baits. And this particular line is actually fluorescent, so fishing at night, I've got black lights on the side of my boat. I can see my line a little bit better. And like I said, for crankbaits, any moving type bait, I'm typically throwing mono just because I like to have the stretch. If I'm throwing a finesse bait or a jig or anything like that, I prefer Flouro. I feel like it's a little bit more abrasion resistant when you're trying to come through brush, trying to come over rock, stuff like that. I like to have that abrasion resistance, and it doesn't have as much stretch for those finicky bites that you need to feel a little bit more than something just coming out of nowhere and slamming a crankbait. When I tie my Flouro to my braid leader, I use a GT knot. It's kind of a half uni knot and then a little bit different on your Flouro end. I really like that knot. I haven't had many issues with it as far as the knot breaking. It's a great knot to use for that Flouro to braid leader, and it's really, really quick to tie. I'll do another video at some point on different knots, and I'll get some bigger line to where it'll be a little bit easier to see on how to tie that. But the GT knot is typically what I use for my braid to fluorocarbon leader. If we're going to flip, if I'm flipping anything, say up on Chickamauga, Watts Bar, somewhere there's a lot of grass, I've been using the Suffix 832. This is 65-pound braid. There's not much that's going to break 65-pound braid. You get, you know, some thick grass, you might have some issues, but this stuff has been really great. I also really like the 832 for a spinning reel, but it doesn't seem to last as long as the Vicious No Fade. Seems like after a couple months, even just being in the rod box, the color on it has faded pretty bad. I'm a big fan of bright colored leader, or excuse me, bright colored braid to a Flouro leader. It just helps to be able to see your line and kind of keep a watch if a fish bites on the fall, or during the winter time when you get just that little bit of a bite that's hard to tell. You can watch your line a lot easier with either a yellow or an orange line. It's a little bit easier to see it and see those little bites. Line storage. For bulk spools like this that I'm not planning on spooling, you know, in the boat, if it's a reel that, a casting reel that is gonna have 12-pound mono on it, and I'm not keeping this big spool in my boat all the time, I tend to keep it in my truck. I use a big tub like this. It's got a locking lid, and I'll typically just throw, I've got several different spools of a bunch of different line I've tried in this box, and I just keep this in my truck just in case. In my boat, when I'm storing my leader line, because obviously when you're throwing, you know, a braid to a fluorocarbon leader, you're gonna break your line, you're gonna, you know, your line's gonna get chewed up, you're gonna need to swap out your leader line. I use one of these Bass Pro Shops. They're super cheap. I think they're like 15 bucks or something like that. Reel case, and I've got it set up to where I can just stuff the spools down in here. I can lay them out however I want to, if I want to do them by type or if I want to do them by, you know, pound size, I can stick them in there. But I use one of these, and this is what I keep in my boat in the front compartment for when I need to retie. I can just go in here and it's easy to see what I'm looking for, and all of this, believe it or not, fits into this little case with a little bit of room to spare. So this is great. It's very affordable, and the great thing about it is too, it's got a lot of padding in it, which you don't really need the padding when you keep everything in the original box, but it keeps everything a little bit more climate controlled. It doesn't get as hot or doesn't get as cold inside this case. Fluorocarbon is very temperature dependent. You start getting really hot outside, 90, 95 degrees, fluorocarbon tends to start to break down. Also, when it gets super cold, it seems like it's a little bit more brittle. So if you can do anything to kind of keep it, you know, more at a consistent temperature, then it seems like it holds up a lot better. I've had some of these spools for a couple years and haven't had any issue out of them. When it comes to when you're tying your knots, when you're trimming your tag lines or anything for cutting line, these Cuda little scissors, I think I bought these at Walmart for like $3.50, are the best braid scissors you can buy, and you can cut flush your fluorocarbon leader. When you tie your knot, you can cut your braid flush and your fluoro flush so that you don't have any big tag ends. And I haven't found any fishing line that these things won't cut, and they cut it super clean. That's pretty much what I have online. Like I said, I really like Sunline. I've never had any issues out of their stuff. It's all really high quality. I love the Vicious no fade braid. I do throw a little bit of Vicious monofilament. I've been experimenting with it a little bit, and so far I really like it. But the Sunline is kind of where I stay for fluorocarbon. I feel like they make the best fluorocarbon, and I haven't had any issues out of it. But if y'all have any questions or comments, feel free to drop those below. Hit like, subscribe. I appreciate everybody who's already subscribed. I'm trying my best to make this thing work, and it's all thanks to y'all to get everything going. But I'll see you guys on the next video. Have an awesome day.